welcome to Small Arms Solutions. Today we're looking at the DPMS GEN II Recon. Now this is a very interesting rifle. In fact, I think it's was a little bit groundbreaking. What makes this thing so different is this was the first time that I'm aware of where there was an attempt to make a rifle in between an AR-15 and an AR-10. So if you want to see maybe like an AR-12.5 or something along those lines. Basically what they did was they took a 7.62mm rifle and they shrunk it down. They made the inside here a lot smaller. Not a lot smaller, but definitely a good couple inches smaller to make the rifle more compact and more easy to use. And it also gave you the ability to have a more compact rifle for hunting, for whatever you wanted to do with it. If you want to say, it was sort of like the 45 Gap in a way. It was taking something that was proven like the 45 auto cartridge and then maximizing it. By narrowing it down, it made the rifle more easy to use, more compact, and saved a little bit of weight. I mean, you're looking at an 8.5-pound rifle here compared to most of your AR-10s are going to be well over 10 pounds. So they were able to lighten it up and just to make it that much more easy to use and to handle. The only negative aspect about that is when you do something like this, you are making the entire rifle proprietary, meaning you're not going to be using anybody else's bolts, anybody else's bolt carriers, anybody else's receivers, anybody else's charging handle. Every part that you're going to see on here, for the most part, is going to be proprietary to this weapon system. Now, there are some that's going to be interchangeable, and we're going to go over those. But I thought it was very significant. And this rifle hasn't done as well as I would have expected it to do. I don't think people have taken it as seriously. And it could be because of the fact there is a lot of proprietary aspects to it. That doesn't particularly bother me too much. If you're going to buy a proprietary rifle, you go ahead and you buy some of the extra parts that you use. Could be a hide wear part like a bolt and such, but I thought this was a very significant rifle when it came out. I've written on this rifle before for Small Arms Review, and I was very impressed with it back then when I shot it. And I decided I wanted to call it in again and do a review for you guys on it. But what we're going to do is we're going to go through this thing from back to front, and we're going to talk about the different components, what's interchangeable and what's proprietary, and what's different. Starting in the rear, we have a standard stock assembly. We have a CTR, and we have a standard receiver extension. Of course, you can change out the stock wherever you would want. I imagine they went with a CTR because they just wanted something that was lightweight. The upper and lower receiver are forged into the 775 T6 aircraft aluminum. The receivers are anodized and they're Teflon coated for a more durable finish. Now, this is a standard receiver for as far as there's no fancy, no frills. This is not ambidextrous. This is a standard magazine release location, standard bolt catch. But as you can see, the trigger guard is machined into the material. So that is not removable. Magazine you have is an SR25 type that comes with a standard steel magazine. You have a very flared magazine well, as you can see here, which makes it easier in low-level light conditions to be able to insert the magazine. You do have on the front here some gripping grooves towards the front here to make a good gripping location for the rifle with your hands. Now we switch over to the other side. You have a standard safety. Now the bolt catch is a little bit different. This bottom end sticks out, so it's a little bit easier to engage with your finger. Now, if you look at the upper receiver, we do have a forward assist. We do have a fired cartridge case deflector, and if you notice, the ejection port dust cover is a little bit different. The locking area here has been moved back, I'd probably say about 25%. So that's sort of unique as well. That's a part that would be considered proprietary to this rifle. Shortening the receivers, that makes a lot of things that have to be proprietary, such as your charging handle. Your charging handle was made shorter. Obviously, the bolt carrier, which we're going to see in a few minutes, was made shorter. Quite a bit of changes were made to the bolt carrier group, as we're going to see in a few minutes here. Now, the trigger is a two-stage trigger, which goes great with trying to get some accuracy out of these rifles. Now, what we're taking a look at now is the handguard, and we do have a free-float quad mil standard 1913 rail handguard. Now, I'm sure you're going to see in the future it's going to M-lock, but as you guys know, I'm a fan of the quad mil standard 1913 rail. And we do have Manta rail covers on here as well. We do have a code for Manta rail, so you can get 20% off of anything on the Manta rail's website. Now, I put these on here because this aluminum handguard, this does get hot relatively quickly. I've had a significant number of rounds through this rifle and the other one. I probably have at least over 1,000 rounds through these two rifles. And it does get hot relatively quickly, so this is definitely something that's a good addition to it. The barrel that we have on here is a 416 stainless steel match barrel. The barrel has been bead blasted to give it this dull finish. You have a Surefire flash suppressor on here that will also take their sound suppressor. You have a mid-length gas system on here. This is basically what you have on the outside. I do want to talk about the optic on here before I get into the guts of this rifle here. Now, you guys have seen me use a lot of SIG optics over the last couple of years, and there's a reason for that. These optics are excellent. They are very, very high quality. The SIG optics have an extremely high standard to them. There's all different variations depending on what you'd want to do. For this one here, this is the Tango 6. This is really an ideal optic, I think, for the 308. It's a 1-to-6 power. So it gives you some additional power out there for longer range work that you could benefit from by having a 308. One of the accessories on these SIG optics is you have a lever here that goes over your power dial. So it makes it easier for you to go from 1-to-6 power or whatnot. Another neat thing about it is you have fiber optics in the rear as well to help you see in lower level light where you're adjusting to. Adjustable eye relief. This is illuminated as well. This just was really a really good optic for this type of rifle, I felt. Also, we have a Geisley mount. Super precision Geisley mounts are some of the finest in the industry. I use the Geisley mounts very, very regularly just because the quality is just absolutely incredible. What we're going to do now is we're going to take this thing apart and we're going to do some comparisons between the parts of the AR-15 and the AR-10 to show you exactly what was done. On my right here, you will see the DPMS Gen II, and over here you're going to see a standard AR-10. This happens to be a Noveske. But you can see a lot of differences right here. First off, you can see how much material has been removed. You can see how the hammer trigger mechanism has been set back. And you can also see the difference in this area right here. The area right here on the Noveske, this is referred to as the AR type receiver. And you can see how that's sort of squared off. This is more of the this is the DPMS pattern, which is rounded off. So you set this on top of each other, and you will also see a very big difference as far as overall lengths and how much more compact that the DPMS is. Now, on top we have the DPMS Gen II, and here is a standard AR-10 type. I had these aligned here so you have the front pivot pin locations lined up so you can see the difference in length. So much, much shorter. Looking at the ejection cover, if you look at the difference between the locations of the locking pin, this has been set back a good 25%. So this is a part that's going to be unique as well. Now we're going to see really the nuts and bolts of what makes this really, really different in the size of the bolt and bolt carrier. Now right here we have a standard AR-15, 5.56 millimeter. Here we have the DPMS Gen II 308, and here we have a standard AR-10 and 308. So first off, you notice the difference in length between the AR-10 and the Gen II. The next thing we look at is the width. This has the width of the AR-15. So not only have they shortened it, they've also made it much, much thinner. Take a look here at the gas key. On the standard AR-10 bolt carrier group, you see your carrier key, which is attached by 2 carrier key screws and then staked in place. Now, what can happen if these aren't torqued properly, these can come loose. And if they come loose, you have gas leakage. And when that gas leakage can cause short stroking because it's not holding enough gas in to make the cycle complete. Now, as you see from the Gen II, this has been changed quite a bit. The location here for the carrier key is all machined into the bolt carrier group. So instead of having an entire carrier key assembly that you drop on a bolt carrier, you are just inserting the carrier key tube. That's placed in, it's screwed in place, then it's drilled, and then it's pinned in place. What this does is it completely eliminates any possibility of having gas leakage due to a loose carrier key. This is a major benefit because it does prevent any leakage from the carrier whatsoever. By having this, the only place you're going to lose any kind of gas in the carrier group is between the bolt and the carrier by having bad gas rings. This one here, you have the possibility of both gas rings as well as loose carrier key or broken carrier key screws. Showing on the top here, this is a standard AR-10 type firing pin, and here's the one for the DPMS Gen II. Length is a little bit different. You can see how the firing pin's a lot longer on the DPMS Gen II just due to the difference in the bolt carrier mechanism. Shown here are the cam pins. You'll see the much larger AR-10 cam pin compared to the one for the Gen II. The bolts where things get really different. Top is a standard AR-10 type bolt. The bottom here is the Gen II bolt. So you can see a difference in material. They've gotten rid of all the grooves in the back here. You do still have gas rings, but the major difference is going to be in the bolt head and extractor. First off is the bolt head. If you notice, this is the DPMS Gen II over here, and this is standard AR-10. You notice the DPMS has 2 ejectors as opposed to the one of the AR-10. Now what that does is it improves ejection. What happens with the 16-inch barrels over the 20-inch barrels and so forth, you can get a condition where the bolt is moving back so quick the cartridge case does not have enough time to fully eject. By having the 2 ejectors on here, that speeds up the process of ejection, and that eliminates the possibility for having a stovepipe type jam. Also notice the difference in the shape of the locking lugs. These are a little more stress relieved, they're made a little bit stronger. The next thing that's going to be very unique we're going to show is the extractor itself. On the bottom here, we have the standard AR-10 type extractor. If you notice that we have an extractor spring, we have an extractor buffer, which is the orange plastic in the middle, and then we have the rubber O-ring. The rubber O-rings became popular with SOCOM in the early part of the global war on terror. What that did was that rubber O-ring increased your extraction force by about 4 times. By using the rubber O-ring, you didn't need the extractor, spring, or buffer. You had more extraction force with just the O-ring than you did with the combination of the spring and the buffer. Well, when DPMS did theirs, they decided to go with an all-rubber buffer mechanism. Now, this works significantly better and significantly cheaper than having to go with all of this. So it's been found with the DPMS that this works much more effective than this whole system here. And I do believe this is patented too, so I don't think you're going to be seeing it anywhere else anytime in the near future. But I can definitely tell you from having well over 1,000 rounds of experience with this rifle, I have never had any extraction issues whatsoever. But this is very, very significant. You're taking the rubber O-ring and knowing that it was much better than the standard spring and buffer, and then just switching over to it on the DPMS Gen II. You can also see a little bit difference in the length between the two as well. Taking a closer look at the bolt carrier, you can see all the chrome plating in the inside of the bolt carrier. And you have a standard manganese phosphate as well on the outside. You have your forward assist notches, and you can also see how this is tapered off, which prevents any kind of carrier tilt. So looking at the overall, you can see that there's basically nothing compatible with the standard AR-10. However, you can see the system was completely reworked to make it work as a smaller package. We can also see the difference between the charging handle. So obviously, because of the Gen 2 being a shorter overall length, that you cannot use the same charging handle as you would with the AR-10. So here is a standard AR-10 type charging handle versus the DPMS Gen 2. Now, although you can change out the charging handle, you can change out the latch. So if you want to get a different latch or a better latch, you would be able to insert that in. So I think what we're going to do now is we're going to take this to the range. We're going to see how it shoots.
Yeah.
Well, overall, this is an excellent shooting rifle. I will say I did notice an increase in recoil from this compared to a standard AR-10. I mean, that's to be expected because, again, you have an 8.5-pound rifle versus a standard 10.5-pound rifle. Accuracy was excellent. I was generally around 1.5 to 2 inches. Groups were generally around 1 inch to 1.5 inches, very consistently. I was very, very impressed with the way this rifle shoots. The barrel is really, really good on it. The MSRP is $1,759. Now, I'm sure you can find them much cheaper at the gun shops than the MSRP, but I have to say it's an excellent rifle. It's well worth the money. For any of you out there who are very concerned about proprietary components, not to worry. I'll probably pick up an extra bolt, an extra firing pin, extra extractor buffer, and an extra extractor for this. Just put those parts away. Those are the only parts that you're going to see any kind of a failure on here. Now, for as far as the trigger is concerned, say you wanted a different trigger, you can put any trigger in here that you want. This is not a proprietary trigger mechanism at all. It's just the locations that are the difference. But the trigger mechanism, the stock assembly, the handguard assembly, these are all parts that you can replace. Same thing with the muzzle device. You want to put a different silencer, go flash suppressor on it, or you want to put on some kind of muzzle brake. You are able to do that. Obviously, optics, you can use whatever you would like. For a hunting setup, this is really a good setup here with the 1-to-6. You have no problem engaging your targets out to probably 300-400 yards with this rifle. I was hitting steel with this at 400 yards. One of the range sessions I did have with this, we were out at a range where we had steel, and we were hitting 400 yards, one shot, one hit. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you do, please click like, please subscribe, and even better, share. Thank you.